taken it once in April, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really take it seriously. I've been told by two different people that the LSAT's like an easy test, and someone else told me that LSAT's an easy test, and they both got 175 on their first try. And I was like, oh well, if it's easy for you guys, it's probably easy for me. So I went in, I signed up for the 7-stage program because that's what they signed up for, and it was pretty bad advice I got. They told me you don't need a practice test or anything, just go through all the lessons, you'll be fine. And I did that, and I got a 150. And I looked at them and I was like, what is this? You told me it's pretty easy. This is not what it is, right? And then I decided to take a little break, and I got back on track in August, and I started studying again. I've always gone like -2, -1 on the logic games from the start. So but my major concern is reading comp. And that's basically where I'm at. I need like a lot of help with reading comp because I am now averaging -5 on LR. And logic games, sometimes I ace it, sometimes I get one or two wrong, just silly mistake here or there. But RC, I think I'm averaging like a -11 or -10. And that's where I'm trying to get a 171. Like that's my goal score. Like I remember in one video you said always aim for the 170s, like because you never know. And my mindset's on a 171, but I would still be happy with the 165 or plus because I'm applying to Canadian law schools. So that's basically where I'm at.
Cool. Well, thank you for the background. And by the way, I'd say always aim for 180. Always aim for 180. So but it's interesting because you're saying 170s and then you give yourself 171, which is like almost the lowest end of the 170s. And you're like, maybe 165. I want you to toss away that mindset. Let's aim to understand everything.
Okay.
Reading comp. What's your current approach like?
So I've watched I keep on changing it, and I've asked some of my other friends who've taken the LSAT, and they said that there's like barriers. You need to like get this mental understanding that like one day you're just gonna wake up and it's just gonna click that this is how you attack like reading comp. But you have to like obviously practice and practice. Like it clicked for me for LR, it clicked for me for LG. Now reading comp was waiting for the click, but for my practice, basically I read the section and I write down a summary. Obviously it's online, so it's a piece of paper. I write down a little quick summary and one or two words if I can. If I need to write more, I write more per paragraph. And then after I attack the reading comp, and my issue isn't sections. I'm fine with all like different types, like law passages or art passages. It's just I always get 3 to 4. So there's like 2, 3, 4 wrong per passage, and it's a specific question type, not like the random question. There's a specific question type that I get wrong. Like inference, usually I get wrong, and except questions I get wrong because then I start bringing my own logic into the reading comp, which is a bad idea because then they're like, oh, make an inference, and then I start bringing outside world logic. I'm like, wait, it's like that's just inference from the world that they tell me to believe in.
Sure. Okay, you're bringing inference questions are among the more difficult in reading comp, and your intuition is actually correct that in reading comp, inference questions sometimes require a little bit of assuming what's most likely to be something the author would agree with. However, it must be based in specific text from the passage. So part of the review process must involve going back to the passage to find the key lines that support a given answer choice. And then for whatever you choose, looking for those key lines. For whatever you answer incorrectly, you then need to find, well, what I thought supported this actually doesn't. So the review process for this can be really grueling because you're going through 450 to 500 words to look for it.
Yeah. I know I forgot how to pronounce the name, but it starts with a P, and like he's in like you can watch the journey. Control F is like a big help for the like RC section because sometimes I just skim like when there's like context, not even like support, just context or something. I just like skim it. I don't really read it, and then I can just Control F during the question and just find out pretty easily. It feels like it's cheating, but I know it's not.
No, helps. It's not. It's totally fine. Yeah, use it to the fullest possible extent that makes sense for you. And one recommendation I have is look for the beginning of a word, not necessarily the entire word, because you can have variations on a word. So the root will oftentimes be the first half of the word or the first third of the word, but you then leave it open for slight modifications of that word.
Okay. Do you what do you think is I'm missing? Basically, like I have some notes here, that's what I'm looking here. Like for the RC section, like if I'm like now for LR, I know there's specific question types that I just need to work on, not like the fundamentals. Do you think I should go back to the beginning and work on fundamentals, or do you think I should try something different or like a new approach?
So share with me your current approach in a bit more detail. You talked about reading the passage, making some notes on scratch paper. What do your notes look like? What are you looking for?
So when I read a passage, I look for what author feels like and try to get like a tone of the author. Maybe the author is supporting, maybe it's something versus the author, or just talk about two little subjects. Like for example, if it's talk about subject X and I can like read and notice that the author really supports subject X, I can write down on the side like author, like I have little annotations. I write A and then like a happy face, like I draw a little happy face, like okay, he likes it, or like frowny face, like oh, he doesn't like it. It just get my mind to thinking that way. And then I write, all right, is he talking about theory, and is the theory really specific? And I can just like a little details, like all right, this is what he's talking about. And in the first paragraph, maybe he's talking about theory and there's a problem with it, so I write theory / problem. Then I go into the next passage, try to see if he's supporting the theory or if he's like trying to dismantle the problem, trying to find like a problem, there's solutions to problems. Like maybe he's gonna be like, oh, this is the solution to the problem, or we can ignore the problem because it's not relevant. And then I write that down, be like, all right, support for theory or support for destroy problem. I write those things down, and then that's basically how I go for the RC section.
Like how long is all of this taking you?
I can do that within 2.5 to 3 minutes. So I know timing's a big thing, especially for like if I'm not writing it down, I can read the passage in like a minute, but then I have to make sure I comprehend the passage, not just read the passage, because I'm a pretty quick reader. But then when I have to understand it, first in the beginning, I was like, let me read every single line and understand every single line. But then I realized that's not necessary because half the questions don't even talk about 75% of the passage. It's just about specific points. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's where I'm at reading comp. It's sometimes I get like the summary wrong. Like I write a little bit too less. I know you're not supposed to write too. There's a sweet spot. You're not supposed to write too less or too much because you don't want to spend time just writing and writing. And sometimes I just like, I try to understand it. I go back to my summary. I'm like, I don't know what I just wrote. I don't get this. And then I have to reread the whole passage, and it like brings me down. Like mentally, it brings me down. Like, oh no. And then I've done like a lot of practice tests. When I first started with RC, I know I've done bad. It brings me down for my whole exam. I'm trying to get through that because it's like, I need to realize that, okay, this is just one section. That bringing me down shouldn't relate to the other sections because I know I'm doing well in the other sections. And I'm just trying to break that mental thinking as well right now.
Gotcha. Okay. So I saw two things here. One is the reading comp. One is the general potential of one section to bring you down when you've already moved on. So the reading comp, the notes, I'm glad that you're able to complete your note-taking process and your initial read in 2.5 to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Everything you described sounded like a lot. So I was kind of worried, like, was it actually taking 5 minutes? But that's good to hear. My question for you though is what you're taking notes on useful to you? And is it focusing you on the right things at the very least to solve all the general global questions at the start?
Yeah, the note-taking, it's really helped me. Like sometimes for main point questions, they're like, I have to read I get between two answer choices. I know like always eliminate your wrong answer choices. That's how my method is. Eliminate wrong answer choices first. Right away when I see something wrong, just cut it out. Don't ever think about the answer choice again. Then I get stuck between two. Then I have to read a little bit more straight because there's usually a difference of a word or like a little like just a stronger word and one's more general. And you have to pick one main point. That sometimes I get confused about the main point, but usually in general, I'm pretty good. My summaries are really good with the matching of the questions are in general focus.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. So it sounds like your current approach is largely working for you, but if you're getting -9, -10, -11 in a section, something's obviously not going right. So my main question then is, are those questions clustered into one main passage out of the 4, or are they spread fairly evenly throughout?
They're spread decently, but then I noticed when like I do my practice test usually during 7 stage or LSAT, and you can use your resources to see if one reading comp section is harder than the others. Usually when the art section is fully difficult, there's too many words. That's when I see like majority of mistakes in that one section, because it's just, I think too that sometimes art sections get really wordy, and you're just like, okay, does this even make any sense? Does this relate to that? And then they use a different word, and you're like, this just destroys my whole summary. And you're like, okay, God, I gotta switch my summary around.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's where it gets a little bit issues. But when it's like a common, like it's equal difficulty all across the board, then there's equal mistakes all across the board.
Okay. So then my suggestion would be, for those arts passages or whatever they are where wrong answers are clustered, in addition to reviewing the individual questions, also make sure that you're taking enough time during your review to fully dissect and break down the entire passage into simpler language. If you look at any of the deep dive class recording videos in the course, you'll see that I've spent a lot of time just taking passages from LSAC and rewriting them in simpler language, like I was trying to explain to a 5-year-old, that kind of thing. Okay. And then, so I would add that as an additional step to the review, aside from simply question-specific review.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so and for the wrong answer journal, I'm doing it for LR. How should I write it for RC? Because I've seen sometimes you could write RC wrong answer journals, and some people are just like, it's just your method of reading. It's just you didn't understand it properly. I try to do a wrong answer journal for RC. It's just like, okay, maybe I write like, my answer is this is the real answer. Where was my error? Oh, I didn't write a good enough summary for this or something like that. There's not much I can write for the wrong answer journal for RC. It's just mostly just obviously reading errors, or I didn't understand the passage.
I actually think you could do a lot of the same things for reading comp as you do for LR. Mm-hmm. The passage is just a longer stimulus.
Okay.
And you need to hone in on the specific portions of the passage that relate to a given question, a given correct answer choice. But a lot of the misreadings or misinterpretations are largely the same.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, because I remember watching a video then on the Unplugged, and it was just saying that it's not about the topics. There's a system. It's like usually like compare, contrast. Like it's sometimes author v someone, or it's just author supporting a passage. There's like certain methods of them writing the RC. There's a type of argument that they do use. It's not law can be author v someone, or law can be author supporting just one thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
I'm getting to that thinking. I'm getting to that point where I can realize this passage is like this, and I know there's a specific way to tackle that type of passage.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to get to that mental, like passing that wall, just climbing over and just seeing the horizon and trying to see, all right, I figured it out. And I know if once I figured that out, I think my -9, -10 could go down to a -6, and which will be a big boost to my overall score. Right now I'm averaging of 165, sometimes 167, like before like I review my answers, which is a great thing because that's a big boost from 150. So I'm pretty happy about that. But again, like you said, I should be aiming for perfect, like pretty basically getting that 180.
Right. So when you just said you go from -9, -10 down to -6, let's get it to -0, or at the very least more like -2, -3 territory. Mm-hmm. If you change your reading comp review process, as I demo in my deep dive classes, there's a lot that you can do. The fact that you're saying that, oh, well, reading comp doesn't lend itself to a wrong answer journal, I completely disagree. If you watch the deep dive videos, I think you'll see what I'm talking about, because I'm reviewing it in class in the exact same way. If anything, you can review more because you have a much larger body of text to work with and analyze. There are some ridiculously tough arts passages, which means that there's a lot to dissect and analyze in them. They may not just be wrong answer. It could also be wrong passage interpretation on top of that.
Yeah. I heard a tip. I don't know if I should use this, but it's just like go read the passage and like see how long it is. Just like scroll and see how long it is, and just get a general sense of it, and pick the hardest one first, and then go for the easier ones. I don't know if that's even worth taking a shot or not, or just go with the flow and go first to the last.
I've heard that before, and I think it's terrible advice. I would never do the hardest stuff first. Everything's worth the same. So I would lock up those easy points first. And things on the LSAT are generally presented in a rough order of difficulty. Mm-hmm. So usually I think it makes the most sense to just do things in the order given.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do that. That was my thinking for LG. And then LG, I'm just great at. And then I think it's like you said, you can master LG. You can get -0 every single time if you really just understand it. I'm just trying to get that understanding for RC. It's difficult seeing like your other two sections, they're like -5 and -0. And then you see your RC just sometimes double digits. You're like, oh, I'm doing something really wrong there.
So it's
And
definitely the area to focus for sure in
yeah.
your case. Yeah.
And how should I focus? Should I just, I heard that sometimes every day, just in the morning, like I wake up pretty early or study late, like depending on how my mood is, like just to avoid burnout. I study when I feel like studying and I like, which is still most of the day. I like study the LSAT for fun. I've tricked my brain to thinking like it's a fun job. Make sure it's fun. You enjoy the LSAT. Because I dealt with burnout the last time I took the LSAT. I was just studying like 6, 7 hours, like just going hardcore, just and then my brain was like on the LSAT day, he's like, I don't want to do this, but let's just get this over with. And now
Yeah.
I find the LSAT fun in a weird way. And RC is kind of destroying that fun, but I know once I pass it, it's just a barrier. And then it's just going to overall have like, I'll be happy. So when you do first read an RC section, do you like, should I skip like some questions and go for some questions first, or should I just go for the question order? Like, because I've heard like I've seen a lot of the classes, and then people say, "Oh, I just skipped a certain question, and I go back to the first question, I go to this third question, I go to the second question, or something like that."
Great question. So I do recommend approaching the questions within a passage in a particular order. I would do the 4 passages as they're laid out, first, second, third, fourth, but within a passage, I would do all the general global oriented questions first, like main idea, primary purpose, passage organization, best title, tone, things of that nature. I would lock those up first because they're the most general in nature. If you read a passage and you can't articulate the main idea or spot it out of 5 choices, then you don't really get the passage, right? So I would lock those up first. Then I would do any local detail-oriented questions that on the paper LSAT, they had line number references. On the online LSAT, they'll highlight it in turquoise in both the question stem and the passage text. I would do those next. And finally, I would do those more inferential, tougher questions, the ones that you mentioned, giving you the most trouble. There they are, the hardest, so that makes sense. So I would do global, local, inferential. And that inferential includes anything tough, like the parallels, for example, in reading comp, which are going to be the most time consuming. I would do those last for sure.
Yeah, no, sometimes I do skip the LR questions where it says parallel flaw. I'm like, you know what? I'll leave you for last. I'll come back to you because I know you're going to waste most of my time and I can use that time for other questions.
Exactly. And the other thing I was going to say, I think you were starting to go in this direction, but you pivoted, was how to address spending more time on reading comp because it deserves more time in your study regimen, right? So a simple way to do it might be, you knock out a passage first thing in the morning. It might just before anything else. It could also be that you give it a disproportionate amount of time in your overall study day. So rather than a third for each of the 3 sections, I might give reading comp 60% and then LR and logic games 20% each in terms of any drilling, attending classes, watching class videos, or doing individual timed sections.
Okay. And obviously do these drills timed, or should I do it on time? Because I've noticed my score, like when I do a time section, my scores are in like sometimes the double digits, but when I like take my time and finish it, like it's not much. It's not like I'm doing like an hour of RC. It's like 5 minutes extra or 6 minutes extra, like from the 35 minutes. My score does go down to -8 to between a -5. I don't know if it's just because I'm taking more time to understand, like I'm not like wasting my time, but it's taking more time to read the passage slowly. What do you think? Should I just do it untimed or should I do it timed until I start hitting those numbers that I want and then switch to timed?
At this point, given what you've done so far, I would do the work timed. I would do it timed initially. And then, of course, review untimed as much time as you need. So, for example, let's say you're going to attend a reading comp class or watch a reading comp video. You complete the passage in advance under timed conditions. And then for any passage that gives you trouble, you then watch the associated video or attend the class. If it's a video, pause as necessary. Look for the key lines or keywords supporting or refuting a given answer choice.
Okay. Yeah. because after the review section, I see like before my review section is like sometimes double digits, but after it does go down like substantially. I'm like getting -5, -4 wrong, and I'm like, it's like that. Like I keep saying, the mental thing is just like I could have gotten that score, but I did it, and it really sucks. And
that regret element, it ties back into the having difficulty letting go of, let's say, reading comp when you've already moved on to logic games.
Yeah.
So I see this thread, which is a natural one, of course.
Yeah, because I've noticed when I take practice tests like fully timed, when I start with LR, LG, I'm in the 167s. I'm like up there, right? Once I start with the RC, I see my score go hit 160. I'm like, oh, it's just that I need to get over that. And do you have any tips on how to just ignore it, just go for the section, go with the flow?
Well, definitely not just hoping, because they could give you reading comp first on test day, right? Yeah. So I would definitely do more set full length exams with reading comp earlier before the break, first or second. Yeah. Adjust that ratio. Yeah.
And it is a 4-section exam now because they changed the flex, right? My approach is I do when I do the practice test, they have the option for flex, which is a 3. And then my 4th section is like the wrong answer journal where I make that into a section because it's like the more difficult LRs. Or should I just like switch it up whenever and add like an RC or LG or like, because I keep on doing like RC, LG, break, LR, LR, or something like that. The 4th section is always LR for me.
Okay. Yeah. So I definitely wouldn't make the 4th section always anything. Variety is key because test day is randomized. You're going to have variety. Yeah. I would probably make it reading comp because you want to work more on reading comp. The wrong answer journal idea is interesting. I think it's cool to drill tough questions, but I don't think it really is valid to make up your own section. Are you giving yourself like 25 tough LR questions?
No. It's not 25 tough. I like pick out, all right, so these are some wrong sections, right? And I'm like, all right, I can pick up 10 wrong answer journal. I'll pick 10 questions. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do these 10 questions. But then I see their difficulty, then I grab some other questions from the problem sets and stuff. Like we get to customize the choices. I'm like, all right, let me just average it out, make it like a simple regular LR. Let it just grow into the more difficult questions, not just start off 25 difficult and just go all the way through.
No, it's a cool idea. I think it's creative, and I think there's benefit to that for drilling on the side. Mm-hmm. But in the context of a full exam, to make it as realistic as possible, I would just do 4 actual sections as designed by LSAT. So you could do reading comp, games, break, LR, another reading comp. That's one way to do it, where that gives you 2 reading comps. And then on the side, do your tough questions drilling or whatever. But to best prepare yourself for test day, I want you to make those exams as realistic as possible.
Okay. And so basically from now on, all right, we have it recorded. Okay, I'll just look at it. But you're just saying drill LRC first, under-timed, try my best to get more efficient with those questions. And, after I'm done the drill, work on it, review it, understand it to a more fundamental until like, it just basically now just practice until I break a threshold or something, or get on like break a mind of understanding and RC better or something like that.
Yeah, so take full exams and review them in depth. Keep learning the Socratic review method to review in greater depth, and you have different tools available to you to help you understand difficult passages or difficult reading comp individual questions. Then the other thing I was going to say regarding letting go is mindfulness meditation, training your brain to focus on the task at hand. If reading comp was first and there was a tough arts passage or whatever, you let go, you move on, you're doing this game now, or you're doing this tough LR question now. And you can you just train your brain to focus on that single thing. It's not easy. The mind naturally wanders, and there's all those hypothetical scenarios of doom about the score dropping with any passages that gave you trouble. But you've got to learn to let go of that. And even just practicing mindfulness meditation, focusing on your breath, is working on that very same muscle. So I would implement it even just a few minutes a day. Okay.
And do you think it's generally like, because of the basically my LSAT, I'm trying to write it November 13th, like basically 4 weeks from now. It's a little stretching it to get my RC score to like, hopefully like way better than what it is now, or is it totally doable if I just practice hard and do it right?
It's doable. It's doable. A single insight about your approach can change everything. So I would give it your all for November 13th. And I know that you wrote in the form prior to our call about potentially going for January, and you could potentially go for January also.
Yeah. Do you think it's a, I don't know, because it's so weird seeing like, some, I'm like looking at law schools, they're like, oh, we prefer if you take November, but January is totally fine. And I'm like, what do you mean January is totally fine? Like, I don't want you to delay my application if you just say January, or like, do you think just taking January, if I know like constantly studying, I could get 100% like a better mark, just take it, or should I just stick with a November score if I'm happy with it and just go for that?
Go for January. If you believe that the additional 2 months will benefit your score,
Yeah.
it's worth delaying your application. Law schools always prefer applications earlier, but that's for their interest. When it comes to your admissions chances, they prefer a higher score.
Yeah,
so it's worth giving yourself those 2 months if you feel you would benefit.
yeah, like knock on wood, like I don't know why, like I have this like I just keep breaking these barriers for the LSAT, and I know if I continue on this trend, I possibly could even get like a 175 or above, maybe even a 179. Like I know the way I'm working hard, the way I'm like working at this, the way I'm thinking about the LSAT. It's like my brain's like constantly thinking about it, but not in a bad way. Like I I like have this gift that my friends say that I just don't get burnt out, and I haven't gone like knock on wood and everything. I haven't gone burnt out at all for the LSAT ever since I started studying. Like I could do practice test on practice test on practice test, and I won't get burned out. I'll actually be happy that I get time to review afterwards, which I don't do. Obviously, I don't do a practice test every day. I take I do a practice test in the morning, review it afternoon, nighttime, wake up next morning, look at my review depth, understand what were my mistakes, and then write another practice test like a day or two after. I think that's a good approach. I don't know if I should I'm averaging 3 practice tests a week. I don't know if I should do more or should I just stick with the 3?
I wouldn't do more. The fact that you're not burning out is great. I'd say you're probably doing the max that I would recommend.
Okay.
And you're not getting burnt out because you are taking adequate breaks. You're not taking a PT a day. You're taking a practice test, reviewing, and you're at the very least alternating days, which is good. So I would maintain that and just adjust the ratio of reading comp like we talked about.
Just more reading comp type of thing. Just see if I can do it. Okay. And so I got that down. And yeah, honestly, this is great. This is really helpful just to talk and just getting it over with and like understanding what to better to do. So the November LSAT though, I heard there's an error in the October LSAT, like a big one that just happened. Do you think that will happen again? Well, hopefully not.
I certainly hope not. And for anyone watching this later, I mean, the error was basically just that there was a tech issue on the Saturday morning, the first day of the October LSAT. They resolved it later that day. It didn't affect anyone for the following days. They rescheduled people. Of course, no one expects anything like that to happen.
Yeah.
If it does, the best course of action is to go for a retake if you want to take a retake, or if not, delay till the next available administration a month or two later. I don't expect it to happen, of course. I very much expect they will want to learn the lessons of whatever happened and avoid it for the future.
Yeah.
And just know going in that you can retake if necessary, especially if you're going into November and you have January as a potential for you.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine too.
Yeah. Just a question about like admissions in general. I am looking at Canadian law schools, but I'm also applying to American law schools because the top one T14, just you never know, right? Like you can get a shot and then you get a decision. But my first year at undergrad, I was studying to become a doctor, and my grades were not very good. Like if you look at it now and you look at it before, you're gonna look this two different students. But it being a splitter, what schools do schools in America? I know in Canada they look at 50-50. Do schools in America look at LSAT more, or do they look at GPA more? Like I never got that understanding of, because I heard that some schools look at LSAT more, some schools look at GPA, or is it like a mix?
On average, they look at LSAT a little bit more.
Okay. And if I do get like upper 170s, it will help my GPA, basically, like even being a lower GPA than the median, it will help it get up there.
Most definitely.
Application. Oh, okay. All right. Well, thanks. Honestly, I really appreciate the time. I just have a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
During main points, when you get stuck between two answer choices, what's the approach that you should do? Should you just go back into the passage, like nitty gritty, try to find the detail, or is it just, I don't know, some other approach?
Yeah, I would go back. I would go back to find the key part of the passage that best summarizes the author's main point, the best summarizes their opinion.
Okay.
and focus there. And then also ask yourself, is this merely technically true, or is it comprehensive, taking in the entire passage? Sometimes things are technically true and they're tempting for that reason, but they're particular to a specific paragraph and don't capture the entire thing.
Okay. Yeah, that's one error I see. I like pick the answer choice because it looks really good, and I'm like, wait a second. And then after review, I'm like, that's just talking about 2/3 of the passage.
Mm-hmm.
This is talking about the one whole passage, even though it seems like a less strong answer choice and not that good of an answer choice. So yeah, but yeah, that's everything. I'll hope for that 180 if I do get it, but hopefully I get a good score. Everything.
Awesome, BK. Yeah, we'll do everything you can to get there. I'll be here
Yeah.
to support you. Reach out if you need anything at all. I'm happy to help.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.